What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Thursday edition of Morning Cup Hockey presented by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365, so download the app and get in on the game. And remember, you must be 19 or older. That's Colby Cohen. I'm Jonny Lazarus, and we have Mike Russo from The Athletic joining us in about a half an hour to talk about the Minnesota Wild and what will be a Central Division preview, and in my opinion, what is probably the strongest division in the entire NHL. We got a lot of things to talk about today, and I will get ahead of this because I know the chat will be saying stuff. I am a literal troll this morning. I am doing this show from my parents' basement. So get your laughs in, make all the fun you want. And with that, I will kick it over to Colby. Colby, what's going on?
That was definitely my favorite thing to say to people back in the day is it's okay. Like, you live in your mom's basement. So I am glad that you got out in front of it. You're learning, and I think learning is important. So good on you. But just looking through this division, I think the thing that really sticks out to me is just the heaviness of the division. Yesterday we look at the Pacific, and there's certainly some guys that are high flying and can, put the puck in the back of the net, a la Connor McDavid and company, Quinn Hughes, but it doesn't feel like the Pacific is nearly as heavy up front as the Central Division. And so, I think that's why this division will be a difficult matchup, basically down the middle for most teams. I mean, obviously the bottom feeder is not quite the same, but when you look at the big boys in the Central, Johnny, it's just, there's a lot of heaviness throughout the forward groups and the forward lineups.
And I think when you talk about the teams in this division too, it's pretty obvious. There's three teams and then the rest of the pack, right? It's the Dallas Stars, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Colorado Avalanche. Like, these three teams are always flirting around the top. Last year, obviously, the Winnipeg Jets were the President's Trophy winners, and everything that could have went right for them did. This year, I don't know if I feel the same about Winnipeg as we saw last year. So I do think there will be a different division winner. With that said, though, every year it seems like, the first round of the playoffs, first two rounds even, it's always a dogfight. I mean, we all saw that Colorado-Dallas first round series last year. If Colorado hangs on for 10 more minutes, who knows what happens in the rest of the playoffs. But Mikko Rantanen, who I'm sure we'll spend a lot of time talking about today as well, maybe as a possible Hart candidate this year, playing on a Dallas team that, as Pete Jensen from the NHL put the other day, the best team on paper. So I'll probably ask you about that once we talk about them. But there is some other things that I want to get into, Colby, before we do this division preview. And before we do that, I do want to give a word from our sponsor, Parasso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Parasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at parasso-usa.com with our promo code hockey15 in all caps, hockey15. And news that I guess made it around yesterday was Gavin McKenna's college hockey debut. It was announced by the NHL Public Relations that there will be a broadcast partnership with Arizona State University and the NCHC Conference, making Gavin McKenna's NCAA debut worldwide on the NHL YouTube channel and on the NHL Network in the United States. So it actually won't be broadcasted on the NHL Network, I guess, in Canada. But pretty cool that all the eyes in the hockey world this Friday and Saturday night, with there being no NHL games till Tuesday, on college hockey and on Gavin McKenna. I just want to get your input on that.
Listen, you've got Arizona State, you've got Penn State, and those are brands that are big football, basketball, national brands. Obviously, Penn State, one of the biggest brands in all of sports, and for good reason with everything that they've built. So I think it's great. And I think that even ESPN has talked with me and Butchie about finding ways to incorporate college hockey more into the NHL product. And I think especially now that it's seemingly the preferred route for all of the top prospects. I mean, look at all the big dogs that jumped from major junior over to the NCAA. A number of these guys, whether it was McKenna, whether it was, who's going to be drafted, but then look at the players that are were recently drafted, whether it's Martone, making that decision to go to Michigan State, Lindstrom making the decision to go to Michigan State. The list goes on and on, right? Ryder Ritchie, from the Minnesota Wild, he ends up going to BU. So it's just good to see the acknowledgement that the future stars of the game are going to be more readily available to your casual hockey fan. And I think it's a great thing. Now, the last thing I will say, Johnny, about the NHL Network, I'm actually going to ask for some help here with our chat. I switched to YouTube TV this summer.
And you won't get it.
Now that hockey's back, I don't have NHL Network.
Also, Randy just said in the chat that they don't get the NHL Network in Canada. I didn't realize that.
So I need somebody to tell me what I can stream on that has NHL Network, but also I need them to have Turner, because if I remember correctly, I forget which streaming.
You should have TNT and TBS on YouTube TV.
Yes, I do, but no NHL Network. I need one that has all of them. Okay, so wait, there you go. I'm pretty sure Fubo, Rogue Wave Creative says use Fubo. Does Fubo have Turner? Because I'm pretty sure I started with Fubo, right? And they said to me that that Fubo didn't have the Turner Sports package, right? And I see New York Boost saying TNT TBS is on HBO Max. Okay, yes, I do know that, but I don't want to have to switch between apps when I'm going, from an ESPN game to a Turner game or whatever. And so I want it to all be in one streaming platform. We have HBO Max, just so you know. We get that, free, I think, through Verizon, actually. But I need a streaming service that has NHL Network and Turner. And
I don't know if you're finding that. Yeah.
ESPN has it. So my question would be so Neil is saying Fubo, Sling, and DirecTV. I was looking at Sling. That one looks like it might actually have all that, but I'm still trying to figure that out. If somebody could tell me, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think Fubo has Turner. I don't think Fubo has Turner. So, and then of course, Big Willie Styles comes in late with a comment that, again, clearly you're just not listening, which is generally what is happening when you're watching our show. You're just saying absurd things in our chat and you're not actually listening to what anybody says. I literally just said YouTube TV doesn't have NHL Network. So, again, take the cotton out of your ears. Try to listen to the talk show. Johnny, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to get back to Gavin McKenna. I wanted to talk about Nate Lehman's comment yesterday, which Mark Diver tweeted. Mark Diver is a great follow for anyone who's invested in college hockey. But Nate Lehman said, I love how the NHL Network is starting out with Arizona State and Penn State, two places that didn't have programs 20 years ago, and now they're kicking off our season. It's what we need to do to grow the game. And I think, Colby, if there are other big schools, I'm talking SEC, ACC, some of those schools down south that get wind of this or can see the attention that these schools and these programs are getting, programs, like we said, did not exist 20 years ago that are now getting national TV views or viewerships. I think this makes it attractive for those schools to consider, hey, maybe hockey's an untapped market that our school is. You don't think so?
No. And it's, again, in theory, it all sounds programs. Johnny, in theory, it all sounds really good. And I want you to be right, because what wouldn't we love about an SEC hockey conference, right? What wouldn't we love about Alabama or Georgia or really any of these big places? UNC has that big club program. And but what you need to understand here is that somebody has to donate so much money to kick these programs off. It's not as easy as just snapping your fingers, because now not only do you have 26 scholarships that you have to fund, to the tune of how many millions of dollars, you really have 52 scholarships that you have to fund. Because if you have a men's team, then you got to have a women's team, right? Because of Title IX, you got to have equal amount of scholarships on either side. You've got not 3 coaches you've got to hire to the tune of $1 million. You've got 6 coaches to hire to the tune of $1 million. And so the expenses go on and on and on. And the question is with revenue sharing happening, you're already reading about sports at some of these schools getting canceled because all of the money has to go to football and basketball to pay the players. Who is going to go invest $25 million, $50 million, $80 million? I mean, Penn State, it was $100+ million gift from Terry Pegula. Unless somebody comes in at one of those schools and says, here's $100 million, here's $50 million. I just think that, unfortunately, we're living a little bit of a pipe dream, thinking that some of those teams are just going to just put Division I programs into their atmosphere. I don't see it, Johnny. I just don't see it. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see it.
Yeah. Well, that's probably what we were saying, or what people were saying about Arizona State and Penn State 20 years ago. Like to this point, right? Like, I don't think anyone would have guessed that those two schools, especially Arizona State, like, I know they had the club team 10 years ago and whatnot, but 15, 20 years ago, I don't think anyone would have predicted Arizona State to have a Division I hockey team. Would you? Were you saying that when you were playing college?
So that one, I think that's a fair point, but I don't think you can put Penn State in the same category there.
What about Arizona State?
I'm just
Arizona
saying,
State.
I'm saying, you can't really put them together. Penn State, it is not surprising. Somebody gave them $100+ million to launch
I understand
hockey.
that.
I'm actually looking up to see who donated the money to
for Arizona State
ASU to launch that program. I don't remember reading about that. Like I said, I would love it. USC, UNLV. I mean, the list goes on and on, right?
Yeah.
Even the University of Illinois. Remember, they did the big feasibility studies. They did the big feasibility study, and they thought that was a green light, and then they decided it wasn't feasible. Here you go. The money for Arizona State University's hockey program came a $32 million donation from Dan Mullet Arena. That makes sense. So somebody said, here's $32 million. So the only way those other programs are going to launch is if somebody comes in and donates that type of money.
I'm looking up because I just saw. Sorry, I'm looking up. The comment in the chat was from, I think, Neil, maybe. Or no, it was NY Boost. I live in the South. There's no way you will ever get people excited about college hockey down here. And I'm pretty sure there was actually an outdoor club game between NC State and UNC not too long ago that had 26,000 fans. That's people caring about college hockey. I know it's UNC versus NC State, and it's an in-state rivalry, and it's outdoor at, I guess, where the NC State Wolfpack play football. But getting 26,000 people to attend a club hockey game, I'd say people care at least a little bit. So it's possible. NC State's another one with a good club team down there that, who knows? We're definitely dragging this out, but point being, great for college hockey. A lot of eyeballs will be on it this weekend with no NHL games, and hopefully Gavin McKenna can deliver, because obviously there is a lot of pressure on this kid too. Cameras all over him. There's a whole camera crew following him this season, from what I understand. And the hype, again, we talk about the difference between Canadian junior and NCAA. Like, sometimes guys struggle in college and maybe it hurts their draft stock. Hopefully that doesn't happen to Gavin McKenna, because right now he's the clear-cut number one going into this year's draft, and he should dominate college hockey just like we saw Macklin Celebrini do, Jack Eichel, all those guys, you name it. Celebrini should McKenna's got to put himself in that category with those guys, and it starts this weekend.
Would you like to move on to the
Yes, I would. I'd love to move on. So let's get into our Central preview, and we're going to start the same way we did yesterday. We're going to take the 8th seed in the division that finished in the regular season and work our way down, or work our way up, I guess, to the 1 seed. So we're going to start with the Chicago Blackhawks. And Colby, as much as I want to be excited about Chicago, we had a great interview with Frank Nazar this summer. I saw that awesome video and picture yesterday of Nazar, Connor Bedard, and Nick Foligno at the Cubs game supporting the Chicago Cubs in the MLB playoffs. But I don't see any way that this team does not finish in 8th again this year. I think this division's too strong from 1 through 7, I guess, and it leaves Chicago just on the outside looking in. Nashville, I'll give a little bit of a win, of a leeway, I guess, with, because I don't think they can possibly be as bad as they were last year. But to me, this Blackhawks team, while they probably did improve a little bit, I just don't see them working their way above 8th place.
Well, I think the biggest question with Chicago, right? I mean, is Alex Vlasic ready to be that true top pair defenseman? And I think the answer to that is yes, because I think you've already kind of seen him growing into that. I think that's a question that you're really going to learn this season. And like I said, I think he's already kind of showing signs of being that sort of true number 1B. You know, maybe he's not the big fancy point guy, but he's that dominant 200-foot shut down puck mover type of guy that you need to win at some point. But when you look at that decor, Johnny, I mean, listen, I know everybody's excited about Sam Rinzel, but he only played 9 games last year. I know everybody's excited about Lev Shunov. He only played 18 games last year. Now, they both got really good minutes in those games. You don't even see Kevin Korchinski on there. You don't see Louis Crevier on there. I think those are another 2 guys. Like, Korchinski was a 7th overall pick. This is a pretty important season for him. Is he going to be an NHLer, or is he not going to be an NHLer? I think Ethan Del Mastro, again, like, the question is, when you look at that Rinzel, Lev Shunov, Kaiser, Del Mastro, like, are they going to be guys that don't make mistakes as they're learning? And I don't think it's realistic to think Sam Rinzel in his first year in the National Hockey League is going to not have a bunch of growing pains on the top pair. I think it's a lot to ask of him, especially playing within that division constantly. And I think that's where you have the most promise in your lineup, but you also have probably the most growing pains in your lineup. And Rogue Waves is letting us know that they sent Korchinski down already. No, like, I understand, but my point just being, like, this is the year. Like, you go from being a prospect to a suspect at some point in your development, and he's starting to probably teeter on suspect instead of prospect. And it's a good lesson. This is why you don't rush defensemen in the NHL. I think Korchinski was rushed into the NHL because going back to the WHL wouldn't have been the right decision for him. But I just think that there's too many, it's too much youth, and you're going to have too many mistakes on your back end. Sure, Spencer Knight's going to cover up for you at times. You brought in Burakovsky. You know, he's a very, very good NHL player. Dominic Toninato has been a solid bottom line guy for his career. Sam Lafferty, where he, had the most success of his career, was in Chicago, so they brought him back. But the reality here is like, is Connor Bedard ready to carry a team? Is he ready to carry an offense? Like, we heard about a lot of the frustrations that, out of Chicago last year. I think we had, a former showmate of ours, Patrick Maroon, who would come on here every week, and he would really have to mute his true opinions and true thoughts about some of the things that were going on. And I even saw something this summer that said Connor Bedard, from another NHL player, that said Bedard needs other players to make him good. And it can't be that way, right? Like, he's got to be the driving force behind that team at this point. And is he ready to do that? I see Chadwick in the chat saying Bedard's going to be the 13th forward on Team Canada. I don't see any world where Bedard is making Team Canada. I have a hard time seeing that, but I guess, time will tell.
What I will say about Bedard too, and I don't know how much this actually matters, but he's obviously done the player media tour the last couple of years, and I got to talk to him just a little bit this year, and he seems like he's growing into himself a little bit more as a person. Like, he showcased a little bit more personality, and this is like off-camera stuff. Like, he was very talkative. Like, he seemed like a normal guy this year, where the past 2 years, obviously the weight of the world is on his shoulders in Chicago, and all the eyeballs are on him. Chicago had so many national TV games, and they're a team that struggles. Like, it's a lot of pressure to put on a young kid. But this year, he just seemed like way more relaxed, way more confident in himself as a person. And maybe that translates on the ice. Like, again, you have to think of the adjustment that this kid had to make off the ice too. Not only is he under pressure on the ice to perform as the first overall pick and this next generational talent, but he also has to grow as a human. So for me, like, that was something that really stood out. Like, that was a takeaway I had just from being there for 3 days. But also, I do think, to your point of growing pains, Colby, like that's something we talked about with Nazar. Last year, while there were growing pains, a lot of those things seemed negative. The energy just seemed negative all year in Chicago, where this year, even if Rinzel and Vlasic do struggle on the back end, if Bedard's a different story, but like, let's say Nazar doesn't have the best start, or some of these younger guys, Oliver Moore is another team. There still could be positives to take away. And I think that's the angle that the Blackhawks have this year, is just finding things to be excited about within those, because we all know they're not making the playoffs. I think every team walks into the locker room on day one of training camp and they want to believe that they can make the playoffs. Their goal is obviously to make the playoffs, but in the back of their mind, most of the guys in this Blackhawks team understand the position they're in. So I think,
how many years do you get to just be happy to be here, though? I mean, that's the question. Like, you're going into your third season. If you're Connor Bedard, you're talking about trying to find any positives. Listen,
I don't think Connor Bedard's happy to be there by any means.
Frank Nazar might have a little sophomore slump. I think a lot of players in their careers have had it. I think guys go through those ups and downs. I still think that, he's a really, really talented player, and there's nobody that can deny the talent level of Connor Bedard, like the raw talent level, but the great players, they bring the other guys up with them. They drag them along. And so I think personally that this is like such a big year for Bedard.
Contract year too.
I think it's a huge deal, a huge year for him, because there is a lot of noise. Celebrini has started to sort of take the spotlight away from him as who is the star number one pick.
I don't know if I agree that he's taking it away.
Okay, you don't have to agree. That's fine. I'm glad that you don't agree. That means I'm probably right. So,
I will bet you, because I know you're obviously you lean more toward Macklin, and how could you not? But I'll bet you this year that Bedard has more points than Macklin.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we could.
For someone who's so confident,
I don't judge a hockey player only on points and their contributions.
Neither do I.
Only on points. I think, can one guy drag a team up while the other guy drags a team down at times? I mean, I look at more of an overall. I never in a million years would say I think Macklin Celebrini is more of a pure scorer than Connor Bedard. I don't think that that's I don't think that is something that I would ever really argue. I think Connor Bedard's pure scoring ability and offensive ability is better, and it's more natural, and it's always been that way. But to be a number one center in the National Hockey League, to be a superstar center that carries your team, that they build everything around, you got to do more than just score, right? And so I'm surprised to hear this, because about all the other things that we really weren't talking about on the show last year.
But he's still a young
meeting comments and all the things that his teammates don't come out and talk about and haven't come out and talked about. So we'll see. Listen, we'll see. You saw what other players said this summer. It was all over. Those quotes were all over what other guys were saying and comparing those two. So that's what I think. We'll see what happens there. I don't know where we started going into this a little bit, but go ahead.
No, I still understand though that this is a 20-year-old kid we're talking about. Like the comments, I just saw a comment in the chat saying, who said it? It was D. White. I think Bedard will be a star, but he is not going to be a generational superstar. The hype is just too much for him. He isn't an Ovi, Crosby, or McDavid. Like, the guy still put up 60 plus points in his first 2 years, on the worst team in the NHL. And maybe there are some issues when you lose, nothing's ever good, right? Like, we don't know what Bedard's attitude's like on a winning team. We haven't seen it yet because the team hasn't been good enough. Like, in 3 years, 5 years from now, if Chicago's, rolling and they're a top team in the NHL, we're going to hear some different things. And guess what? He's only 23 at that point. Like, I think we build these guys up. It's so funny. It's like the scene in Air. We love to build these players up, and then when they get to the top, we love to break them down. Like, that's just how it is in sports. But I am certainly not one on Connor Bedard. I think he's going to be a superstar, and I have no doubts about it. But let's move on into our next team. We spent way more time with the Blackhawks than I thought we would. Actually, we didn't even mention Spencer Knight being the starter this year, but just because of time. You did mention, we didn't really talk about it.
I did.
Let's go into Nashville. The Nashville Predators. Colby finished 7th last year. And I think a lot of the questions are going to be Andrew Brunette. Is he the first coach that gets fired this year? There were a lot of conversations about it last year with the way they started. And this roster has not really improved much over the offseason. There is also a Nick Hague injury on the back end already. He's going to miss the first 4 to 6 weeks. Obviously, he came over from the Vegas Golden Knights, but you got to Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Ryan O'Reilly will be much better this year than they were last year, because I just don't see how players of their caliber can look at.
Yeah, I just think when you look at that team down the middle, it's problematic. They just picked up Tyson Jost, who has played center in his life, because they're obviously not feeling good about the depth. They got him off of waivers from Carolina, I believe it was. But I would expect another really, really tough season for this team. I mean, they've got a bunch of money available, but you still got to sign Evangelista, who's one of their only young, sort of promising future players that can play right now. On the back end, again, leaves you with things that you'd like to see. You add Nick Perbix, who has had his struggles defensively. I think Hague is always a good pickup. Eric Haula, again, these are all NHL players, but Ryan O'Reilly, who has, again, been one of my favorite players to watch in the National Hockey League over the last year. You're talking about a guy who's closer to 40 than he is 30 right now. And just the way that he plays with the heaviness and how hard he is, I don't think having him as your number one center, logging those types of minutes with those types of matchups and asking him to do it over 82 is all that realistic. So I think it's going to be a struggle for Nashville again this year. You'd like to see UC Saros play a little bit better this season than he did last season. But again, I think looking around that team, they've got some real trouble.
Do you think Bruce to the end of the season?
Say that again. I'm you cut out on me there with your question.
I said, do you think Andrew Brunette makes it?
So I don't know what's going on here. I'm having a hard time hearing Johnny and his question, but I'll just kind of keep moving through here. I think Johnny and I talked about this before the show, and I still think you're probably looking at a 7th and 8th place finish type of season for Nashville. I'd love to see Spencer Knight help push this team so they don't finish in the basement of the bottom and get themselves into the 7 hole. But I think you're looking at a Nashville, Chicago, 7 and 8 finish, this season. And again, I think expectations are slowly changing pretty quickly in those places. So they're going to have to kind of figure that out and get going at some point here. So since Johnny's struggling with Wi-Fi, I think I'm going to go to his next favorite team to talk about, which is Utah. Hopefully we got him back, Vic. I don't know if you can text me on the side a little bit. I also do hear myself echoing through your computer again, Johnny. So maybe you can help by turning that down a little bit. Anyways, did you want to have any opening thoughts on Utah, on the Mammoth now, not Utah Hockey Club? I almost said that.
Yes, I did. And I apologize for the Wi-Fi issues. And I see everyone in the chat chirping my, so I guess they can take the blame for this one. But with Utah, I love their blue line, Colby. We kind of talked about it in our pre-show. These guys were super injured last year. Dursey missed a lot of the season. Sergachev was hurt. Marino, I think, missed some time as well. And they were only 7 points out of the playoffs. A fully healthy year, you bring in JJ Peterka in their top 6. And I love the look of their top 6. I've said it a million times before. Colby Keller is the most underrated player in the NHL. 30 goals, 60 assists last year, 90 points. The guy's a consistent 30-plus goal scorer. This could be the year he puts up 40. He's a stud. And he's obviously trying to make the team for Milan, too. So I think a big start for Clayton Keller is going to be something to keep an eye on. But this Utah Mammoth team, they do everything the right way. Ryan Smith just gave them brand new practice facilities. It's a team that's invested and a fan base that's invested. This team is going to do everything in their power to make the playoffs. I think they'll make some additions at the trade deadline as well. And I think Utah finds a way to get themselves into the playoffs this year in the 4th spot in this division.
Yeah, I have them on the outside looking in again, Johnny. And I do agree that, you look at their back end and you're like, okay, Sergachev, Marino, Cole, Dursey. How's Sean Dursey gonna look in a full season back? Obviously, he missed a lot of time last year. I think that's a big question mark. If they can get him back to sort of the top of his game, I think he's obviously a little bit of a difference maker in your top four. I think Ian Cole's a guy you just know what you're getting from. And then you look at down the middle, Cooley, Hayton, McBain, Stenlin. Like, are those guys taking another step in their games? And to me, I don't know the answer to that. Like, I know what you're getting out of Clayton Keller. I think we pretty much know with Dylan Gunther, like, what are you getting? But like night to night, is Logan Cooley ready to be your top center? I hope he is. I love watching that kid play, for the record. I think he has electrifying potential, like game-breaking electrifying potential, Logan Cooley. But is he ready with those matchups? Is he going to be that guy? And that's a question mark that, like, I don't have an answer for you, and that's why I still have them on the outside looking in. But I agree with everything else in the fact that, like, you love to see what their ownership is doing. They're pushing the boundaries. They're investing in their team. The fan base seems really jacked up. They spent all this money fixing up the arena to make it better for hockey. They've got some really good, like a good core in place, right? So they should get saves from Vejmelka. They add Peterka, obviously. That's, not exactly a small ad. That guy has the potential to be a top player in the National Hockey League. But I still see a lot of question marks here, Johnny, that I'm just not ready to commit to.
But okay, we do have Mike Russo ready, so I don't want to waste any time, but I do want to get back to the Utah Mammoth after, because again, there are points to make. But before we bring on Russo, just want to give a quick word from our sponsor, Out West. From early morning skates to late night league games, Out West polos are built to keep up with lightweight, breathable, and made to move fabric. They're clean, sharp, and built for guys who don't want to wear the same thing as everyone else. So head to outwest.us and use our code Cuppa, CUPPA in all caps, for 15% off of your order. And with that, let's bring on Mike Russo. First of all, Mike, happy Yom Kippur. Good to see you. Are you fasting today?
Does it look like I have ever fasted?
I think you look good.
Yeah, that's always been a problem. I should be on a daily fast. So,
well, I know you've been a busy guy. Everyone wants to talk to you. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Everybody wants to talk to you right now, obviously, with this Kirill Kaprizov stuff going on, biggest contract in NHL history. But while I don't want to overlook that, Colby and I were talking in our pre-show about Matt Zuccarello's injury, and I'm curious how much that's going to impact the start of the Wild season.
So, I mean, it's almost like you're looking into my laptop. I just did a little thing for one of our all 32s where I talked exactly about that. That's only that is one of my biggest fears for the start of the year, because one, Zuki always gets off to great starts, and he's so important to the offensive production of this team, and was a big reason why this team got off to a great start last year. And so far in camp, even though we've seen a lot of good from Liam Ogren and Danilo Urov, neither has produced in any preseason game really at all. And somebody's got to lasso this job. And the other thing is Vladimir Tarasenko, even though he looks good at 11 a.m. in practice, he hasn't so far looked good at 7 p.m. in these games, and he hasn't produced. And so you have I think they have an incredible first line. If they keep those three forwards and Rossi, Boldy, and Kaprizov together, I think they have a really great third line. Their second line seems to be an issue right now, and you just got to wonder at some point, as good as Boldy and Kaprizov have been, if you might have to split up the wingers to bring some production to the second line. The good thing this year is that for the first time, because the Wild are in buyout hell, is that Bill Guerin will have cap space to be able to address issues that he finds throughout the season. So if he thinks that their blue line needs to be addressed, he'll have that latitude now and that freedom, as long as they don't get inundated by injuries again. And same thing with the second line. So I just think if one of these young kids doesn't take over and they can't buy time for Zuki to come back in a couple of months, that they might have to address this issue.
Bruce, we were talking yesterday about the big contract for Kaprizov, obviously, as the whole hockey world was, and we were kind of giving our points on it. I kind of made the statement that I thought the ownership did not help Bill Guerin's negotiating power by saying, hey, we got a blank check. Whatever this guy wants, we're going to give him. And he certainly got every dollar that he's worth. The criticism has been how are you now going to build a team around Kirill Kaprizov? Like, what is the temperature and the mood surrounding all this? Because you are boots on the ground. You probably have a pretty good relationship with the fan base. I think you probably have a great sort of pulse of what's going on in Minnesota.
Well, I think the one thing that Pierre LeBrun and CJ Chris Johnson did a really good story where they talked to agents, and obviously agents are going to love this deal. But one agent pointed out, and it's absolutely true, is sometimes we forget just because the league, first of all, the league and the NHLPA, and I get why the NHLPA especially wanted this, when they negotiated the rising cap for 3 years and then decided to announce it, that changed the complexion for all these group threes that are entering, potentially becoming group threes. It just obviously made things a lot more difficult for the teams because now everybody knows where the cap is going. But the one thing this anonymous agent pointed out in the story, which is 100% true, is that these are just still projections. And there's a lot of belief that with the health of the league right now, that they undersold this cap and that the cap actually next year, instead of 104, could be 110. And instead of 113.5, it could be 120. And 3-4 years, if that cap does just go up to 130 or whatever it's going to be, we're talking now 14% of the cap. And so that's the hope from a Wild perspective, is that this contract is going to age well. Everybody's situation is different. The Wild could not lose this player. As good of a market as this is, as much as this should be a destination, it has not been. And so, the one thing when you have Kirill Kaprizov is you always have a chance to win. And you're going to probably be able to recruit other players because he's so respected in the National Hockey League. To your point, Colby, the other thing, it wasn't just that Craig Leopold, went public on just their desire and their willingness to give him everything. The rising cap hurt. And the other thing is, Bill Guerin, when he negotiates, he doesn't play games. He goes to the number. He doesn't like to... he basically says what they're willing to pay. So when they went right to the number, and then you couple that with what Craig Leopold had said so publicly, Paul Theophanous was probably going to, not accept anything that one day and try to see if he could squeeze more money out of the Wild, which they obviously eventually did and got an extra $1 million more. So, maybe it wasn't the smartest negotiating tactic, especially with an agent that they've had, other contract disputes with Kirill. But look, Paul did an incredible job for his client. The Wild wanted to make sure that they kept him. And, Kirill clearly showed that he's willing to play ball here for the next 8 years.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Russ, because, it's funny you mentioned like getting to the number with certain guys. Before this signing, I saw on your Twitter that Zeev Boyum and Brock Faber had been paired together. All of a sudden, the last couple of days, they're not paired together. Is Billy Guerin trying to, limit Zeev Boyum's playing time so he doesn't have to pay him as much in a couple of years? Is that what's happening?
No, right I don't think it. I don't think it. Yeah.
I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding. Come on.
Yeah. It definitely has nothing to do with that. Part of it is that they're finally, the last 2 exhibition games they're playing their real team, and Spurgeon had not played any preseason games, and I think it makes, until Brodin is back, I think it makes a lot of sense to maybe pair Zeev Boyum with Jared Spurgeon, even though that's an undersized pair. Jared Spurgeon has the ability to make any player feel comfortable, and I think that Zeev looked great the other night. And so I'll be interested to see what happens when Brodin comes back, because if it were me, if you really do want, I don't think they're going to want Boyum probably playing with Juracek. That would be a really, potential problem. Just 2 young defensemen that seem to always want to go and maybe not always worry about their own end. So, do they play Bogosian instead of Juracek and Boyum and pair Boyum there? Or do you have, do you keep Boyum with a comfortable pair like Spurge, and do you maybe put Brodin with Faber and actually put Jake Middleton on your third pair with a Bogosian or Juracek and really kind of balance out all 3 pairs? So it's going to be really interesting what they do when Brods gets back. And he's not far off. He might, even be ready for the start of the season. Right now, I'm getting the sense he won't be, because he was back in a non-contact jersey yesterday at practice. And he's not going to play, obviously, in Friday's finale. So that probably means that he's a week or 2 from the start of the season. But to your point on Boyum, he looked awesome yesterday. He's going to eventually become a very, very highly paid NHL player. To your point, though, from the Wild's perspective, they probably don't love it coming out of his entry level right now, the way that, that offensive defensemen coming out of their entry levels are getting paid on their second contracts. But Boyum can get paid eventually. I mean, we saw what happened with Faber, right? Like Faber's an $8.5 million defenseman, and right now he's probably not going to be on the power play. So, once you gave him 8.5, that now turns your offensive defenseman into $9 million defenseman.
I got to think Lane Hudson's agent after the Luke Hughes deal is just sitting there like, well, my number doesn't start with 9.0 anymore. My number starts at 9.5 now. And then Noah Dobson's got to be sitting there going, well, wait a sec. I just took 9.5. What are we doing here? So
Lane Hudson's dad might be the one also saying that. So,
well, listen, I know Rob Hudson really, really well. And I will say this about him. There is no guy who, there is passionate hockey parents, and then there's Rob. And Rob has a plan for those boys. And right now, Rob's getting the last laugh with that plan for his boys, because I got to tell you something. There's a fourth brother who's playing in he's either playing the USHL or the OHL. I'm drawing a blank right now which league he's in. Supposedly is really starting to trend towards being like Cole and being like Lane. And don't forget about Quinn, who Stan Bowman really likes, who's up there. So again, I saw Rob's comments. Like, everybody kind of had their laugh about that with the whole Olympic team, but doubting Rob Hudson is not smart for anybody. That's that's the only thing I'll say in that. And the last thing I want to leave you with here, Roos, because we've already kind of gotten in.
Yep. Listen.
What do you think?
What do you think Jack thinks that he's now the lowest paid Hughes brother?
It's a Hughes tax. That's what I heard. The Devils had to pay a Hughes tax because he took such a friendly contract. That's kind of
Quinn's gonna get like 20. Quinn might get 20 on his next deal.
Yeah. All right. So before we let you go, let me ask you this: can the Minnesota Wild be a playoff team with two rookie defensemen playing big minutes? Like, are these guys good enough that they can make the playoffs with Buyam and Jiricek, playing between, let's say, 15 and 20 minutes, 22 minutes a night?
I think it is a concern. I think it's something that, look, we've seen growth from both of them, but the reality is that, one's a teenager and the other is sort of, he is really raw. He's still, you see the raw skill in David Jiricek, but there's still that one or two plays every game where he just makes, a huge mistake that seems to end up into being golden scoring chances or in their net. And so it is a concern. But, again, the way I look at it is that, both of them, still it's not illegal to send either of the minors if they need it at times. And for the first time in a long time, Bill Guerin has cap space. So if he sees that's to me the biggest difference going into this year is that the Wild had no flexibility to make really in-season changes, significant in-season changes the last 4 years. And now they really do. And so if Bill Guerin starts to see kind of what I mentioned, that, that second line production is a major problem that he's got to address, he will have the ability to do that this season. And it's same thing when it comes to the blue line. If they're healthy, they have a really great top four. But to your point is one reason why I just wonder if Jake Middleton winds up as a third pair guy here when Broads comes back is I think you're going to really want Boyum playing with a Faber or a Spurgeon just to have an insulation there. And if that's the case, you can really balance out your blue line by putting Jake on the third pair. I think it's not. I think they can make the playoffs even in this tough division. But I do think that this is going to be worth watching all year for Bill Guerin, and it might be something that he's going to have to deal with at some point this year. Whether it's not just the blue line, whether I'm mostly watching camp right now. I'm a little worried about their second line production without Zuccarello because Tarasenko, look, veterans don't love to play in the preseason, but he hasn't been great in the first two preseason games that he's played, and if he's not going to produce on that second pair. And those young kids don't produce on that second pair, it's going to have to be something that's going to be neat to look at to start this year.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well,
Bruce, I got nothing else for you. We always appreciate you hopping on here. Nobody knows the Minnesota Wild better than you and the Central Division better than you. So you can expect a lot of texts from me throughout the season.
No problem, guys.
Us in the morning.
Yep.
Jonny Lazarus, noted Minnesota Wild hater.
Yeah, I know. We've established that throughout the year. It's kind of like
I have him on the outside again.
He offsets our Dom Lucian, who seems to love the Wild. So So that's good.
That's the chart guy, right?
Yeah, that's the chart guy.
Chart guy,
Yeah.
Mostly
Right,
I have those
guys.
people muted. Good seeing you, Russ. You're the best.
All right, good Yuntif, guys. Good Yuntif. See ya.
Yep, good you too. Good. You know what? Hey, you know what? I'll give you a little bit of credit, Johnny, and I'll go back to just quickly. You made a lot of those points yesterday about talking a little bit about the contract with Kaprizov and some of those things, then points. I think, anytime Michael Russo agrees with you, that means you're doing something right? So I'll give you a little bit of credit there. But let's keep buzzing along here. I know you missed Utah, which probably killed you because your Wi-Fi was giving you a difficult time. Do we go to St. Louis next? Because I know J-Rock is just probably waiting to hear how we feel about the St. Louis Blues, Johnny. So I'll let you start. And why don't you tell us, do you have them in the playoffs? Do you not have them in the playoffs?
I don't have them in the playoffs, and I think we were really hard on them last year. Listen, while I think Jim Montgomery has clearly shown that he does a great job with teams in the regular season. I mean, he came in and took over last year and turned their year around, got them into the playoffs, and they were 2 seconds away from getting into the second round when they probably should have been there. But I don't know. Like, I don't hate this team. I also don't like this team. Like, there are some talented players up front. Obviously, Jimmy Snuggerud's a guy to watch too in his rookie season. Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, always very exciting players. It should be a big year for Dylan Holloway. What I'm like, I don't want to say like what people might be sleeping on, but I do think the Zach Bolduc for Mailloux trade, the Logan Mailloux trade, might end up backfiring a little bit on St. Louis. Like, I thought Bolduc is going to be a really good offensive player. I think he's going to be a standout in Montreal this year. Granted, like last year was his first real season in the NHL, but I don't know. Like, I don't think the depth is there for St. Louis. I don't think their bottom six is going to give them enough scoring. And I don't know if their second line is going to give them consistent scoring. Like I said, Kyrou is a really strong offensive player, and Holloway, had a good breakout year last year. It needs to be sustainable and consistent this year. And I'm not positive or confident that they'll be able to do it. Like, that's really what it comes down to with me with the St. Louis Blues. Granted, I was much lower on them last year. I thought their blue line was like the slowest blue line in the NHL. You're going to talk about Cam Fowler, I imagine. And Broberg was obviously a big addition for them last year, but I don't know. I'm not confident in this team. I don't like it. I don't hate it. What do you think?
Well, first off, it's just so strange to hear you talk about a team and have succinct, solid
points,
things to say. It's just, it throws me off a little bit. I mean, normally you just come in with the vibes are high and they've got a great locker room DJ. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Like,
not really.
Give me a little more credit. I'm telling you, it throws me off when you have, reasonable things to say. So I have them in the playoffs this year. I think they're probably a team that finds a way into the wild card. I think Jim Montgomery gets more out of teams than a lot of coaches do. I like the up-tempo pace that his team plays at. I think a couple of little notes that I kind of put, not so dissimilar to yours, but yeah, like Jimmy Snuggerud, like, is he going to be a guy who produces? You're asking a lot of the guy in his first full season in the NHL. I think he can do it. Okay. His game seems translatable. And then my other two guys that I circled and put question marks around were Philip Broberg. Is he ready for everyday top 4 minutes? Is Dylan Holloway going to, play that consistent sort of 200-foot game where he does contribute offensively again, which kind of has Jake Neighbors getting a little bit better matchups further down the lineup, right? Jordan Kyrou, last 3 seasons, 30, I think it was 37 goals, 31 goals, 36 goals, something in that. Don't quote me exactly, but you got a guy who pushes for 40 every year, so that needs to continue. Cam Fowler, though, like, let's talk about him. I want you in the chat. I think I saw D White in here today, who's our our resident Edmonton Oilers, call out person. We'll call him because he'll come for us when we come for them. But I pleaded with Tyler Uremchuk on this network for a year to say the Edmonton Oilers needed Fowler. I said they needed Gibson too, by the way. So I did say both of them, but I kept saying go get these players. Go get these players. And I remember being kind of given the Heisman, like a little stiff arm. No, these two guys can't play anymore, okay? Cam Fowler on your top pair with Colton Parayko, that's a top pair that's got it all. I mean, that's 24 or 5 minutes a night. Let's call it a third of the game every night where you have that pair on the ice. That puts you in a really good situation. And then be able to come back with maybe Broberg and Falk as your second pair. Like, you're talking about 2/3 of the game being covered by really high-end quality guys. Now, Logan Mailloux, like, he's only played 8 games in the NHL. We'll really find out what he is this year a little bit more. The way that, Montgomery likes to go, I think that'll help Mailloux. He's a guy who likes to be involved offensively. So I think this team will find their way into the playoffs. I like them down the middle with Thomas, Schenn, and Pius Suter. Like, I think the world of Braden Schenn. The guy's a great captain, and he's absolute nails the way that he plays. So I think at the end of the day, you're going to see this team find their way into a wild card spot. And we'll see. Does Minnesota have the juice to get that other wild card spot? I think you could see potentially 5 teams come out of the Central. I do. I think it's a year where that could really, really happen, for this division.
Well, let me ask you this too, because Jordan Binnington is going to play a lot of hockey this year. He started, I think, 56 games is what I saw. Yeah, 56 games played, 54 starts last year, and he's not playing in some mini 4-game tournament that's going to last 10 days. The Olympics is a much longer and I think more exhausting trip. You could speak on it firsthand. You've done it. This guy is like.
I didn't do it as a player. I did it as a pro.
But you've been there and you see what the players go through. Like,
it is a big. Now, granted, they'll be in Italy. I was in Korea, so a little bit different.
Yeah.
I think in Italy, I think there'll be probably a little more comforting, just a little closer culturally, food, all that kind of stuff. So go ahead.
But point being too, Colby, like, he plays a lot of games. Like, they don't split the net, him and Joel Hofer. Like, Binnington's going to be asked to do a lot this year, and I just don't know if the wear and tear post-Olympics, again, like, this is just me asking questions. I'm not saying I doubt the guy. He's clearly shown he can perform in big moments when needed.
Big gamer.
I'm just asking,
gamer.
Yeah, I'm just asking the question, like, post-Olympic break, after Binnington probably already has, 42 starts under his belt, what's he going to look like,
Well, let's just throw this out there. Doug Armstrong, pretty involved with the Olympic team for Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty involved with the St. Louis Blues, right? So you got to think, like, obviously St. Louis Blues number one priority, but hey, maybe they find him a day off here and there. You know what I mean? I'm just throwing it out there. It is a possibility. And maybe they go and win a gold medal, Canada, and then they come back and there's like a little hangover. Like, maybe it feels a little letdowny after that. How can it get, now he's got a Stanley Cup, he's got an Olympic gold medal, he's got a 4 Nations win. Like, is there a little bit of a drop off after that? I don't know. We'll see. But ultimately, Johnny, I'm a little higher on them than you. I don't think either of us are nearly as down on them as we were last year. So, J-Rock, you take the win on that one. I do think that your back end gives you the opportunity to play Joel Hofer a little bit more, Johnny. Sometimes all it takes is one guy. Like, is Cam Fowler like this Roman Josi-esque superstar or Cale Makar-esque superstar? No. But what he does is he comes in and he's a legit top pair guy who pushes everybody else into the right spots. Sometimes bringing in a good player is as much about what their contribution is as it is to where he slots other players and gets those players different types of matchups against guys that it's more sort of in line. And think about some of the stars we saw struggle at the 4 Nations last year as play went higher up, getting, again, matchups they're not used to, being slotted in areas of the lineup they're not used to. So I think that's sort of an important part when you think about Cam Fowler and how he kind of, I want to say, solidifies this entire back end for this, for the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Just for time purposes, Colby, let's move on to our next team, and that is the Colorado Avalanche. And I mentioned Andrew Brunette.
Let me make a suggestion here. Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg. We have them at 1, 2, 3 in the division. We both do. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's kind of go through these teams together. Okay. Let's just kind of bounce around these three teams, because I think everybody assumes these are the top three teams, right? I think we both have Dallas at 1, Colorado at 2, and Winnipeg at 3. Okay.
That's exactly what I have.
You go ahead. I'll give you the ball. You can start here, but let's kind of talk about the three big dogs of the Central.
Good suggestion, first of all. Second of all, we just saw the Dallas Stars fire Pete DeBoer after another disappointing finish to a playoff push. You know, a team that, like I said before, people have said probably the best all-around team on paper. It feels like Jake Oettinger is due for a Vezina Trophy one of these years. Obviously, there's been an emergence of Thomas Harley. He is on a contract year this year. Jason Robertson, again, on a contract year, I believe. You know, there's obviously been conversations about trading him. That top line could be one of the best top lines in the NHL this year. But I did want to flip this question back to Colorado, because Jared Bednar is the second longest tenured coach in the NHL. He's been with the Avalanche since 2016-17. They've won 1 Stanley Cup. They had disappointing finishes prior to that Stanley Cup. And since that Stanley Cup victory, they've only won 1 playoff round. I'm curious if there's going to be any conversations about a Jared Bednar hot seat this season, because 1 cup in nearly a decade with Nate McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen in previous years, Cale Makar, obviously the last few years. It just seems like it's a little disappointing to only have 1 Stanley Cup with the talent that the Colorado Avalanche have.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, we say it all the time. Winning the cup is just, as you know, it's so hard. You know, just seeing the team that we think is the best team on paper rarely does it. I do think the conversations will start. I think Colorado is a very, very patient organization. You've got Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland at the helm of the organization. I don't think that those guys are feeling any levels of heat in what they do. They finally went out and they got who they believe to be as a number 1 goalie. So I do think the clock starts now. You've got Gabriel Landeskog back, so your captain is back. You've got a healthy group. Okay, you
strong second line center now.
You've moved on from the Mikko Rantanen thing. You know, he's on his way. We know where he plays. You bring in Olofsson and Burns, right? You know, you've got Nelson there, who's got a chance to get comfortable now. We talk about trade deadline guys not being super comfortable. Yeah, like the clock starts for me with Jared Bednar. If they have another disappointing finish this year, then I think, yeah, next summer we're talking about Jared Bednar, you know, potentially being on the chopping block. I think that's fair and reasonable. You know, but we'll see. Like, does Mackenzie Blackwood, can he be the guy, right? There are some questions there, but ultimately Landeskog back, the superstar talent that they have, the second line center now, a guy that can produce goals. Like, I like this Colorado team, and I can't wait to see them go head to head down the middle with the Dallas Stars, who I think when you have Hintz, Johnston, Duchesne, Foxa down the middle, like, show me a deeper 4, right? There might be teams that are as good down the middle, but man, that's a deeper 4. And I saw someone asking who Ritzkovian was in the chat. I don't see it now, but somebody said, who's Ritzkovian? Former Northeastern Husky who's had, you know, good showings in the American League. He's had some call-ups, and I think they're ready to watch him become a full-time NHL player. For those of you who are familiar with John Goyens, who does the coach's room or did the coach's room with Tyler and Frank for the last couple of years, John Goyens was one of his coaches, Ritzkovian, and worked with him all throughout his youth, coached him, helped kind of bring him up and teach him. And so I know that's a guy that he has a lot of faith in as a hockey player. But Johnny, those 2 teams down the middle, man, I think that's going to be big time. And then, you know, for Dallas, like, where's Jake Oettinger going to fit in here? Like, is he going to feel some heat? Like, he has an opportunity to be the starter for Team USA. How do guys respond to that this season? Do guys play nervous? I mean, does it affect Hellebuck? Does it affect Oettinger? Is Demko motivated to be a superstar to play his way onto the Olympic team? Or do we see it like last year with Darnell Nurse, who struggled until he found out he didn't make Team Canada and then had a great second half? Maybe you could make the argument on Bouchard for the same situation. So how do guys handle the pressure of knowing they're not just being scouted for pro purposes, now they're being scouted for Olympic purposes? And I think that is a question mark that'll be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, player to player, but it will affect every guy differently.
Yeah. I don't really know where to go from that because we really kind of just covered Colorado, Dallas, and not much Winnipeg. Do you want to get into Winnipeg? Let's finish with Winnipeg.
Listen,
Okay, so
Jeff Richards here today. We can't do the Winnipeg Jets a disservice. We've seen them as a playoff team. They've got one of the most interesting stories in all of hockey with Jonathan Toews coming into the fold, right? I know you told me he's dealing with a little bit of an injury right now, but Tanner Pearson, I think that's a sneaky pickup. Gustav Nyquist, I think there's stuff still left in the tank there. But how do you see it shaking out this year for the Winnipeg Jets?
So I was listening to Dan and Chris's Central Division preview the other day on Empty Netters. Shout out to those guys. We know how much we love those guys. And they made a really good point. This feels like a kind of make or break year for the Winnipeg Jets. And I only say that because, obviously Nikolai Ehlers just left, had the chance to resign, did not. Kyle Connor, his contract now ends at the end of this season. And you wonder what he's going to decide to do because, again, like having the opportunity to be a free agent at the age of probably what will be 29 by the time this contract is up, it's a serious decision for a guy like Kyle Connor to make. 97 points last year, one of the best scorers in the NHL. Like, if they don't perform, they're at very large risk of losing Kyle Connor. And then I think the window certainly gets very close to shut for the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously they have Scheifele locked up long-term. They have Hellebuck locked up long-term, but I don't know, man, like everything went right for them last year and they were a disaster in the playoffs. Like, I don't see how a guy like Kyle Connor won't explore other options, especially an American kid. So this to me, and I agree with Dan and Chris, I'm kind of just taking their words here, feels like a sink or swim kind of year for the Winnipeg Jets. Like a last dance of some sort.
And D. White in the chat just asked, do we think Toews can play top 6 minutes for 82 games? No, I don't think that that's realistic at all. I think Nemestikov can always slide up that lineup and you can push him back down a little bit. I mean, I'd even argue that line with Iafallo, Nemestikov, and Niederreiter, which obviously we don't know if that's how they'll start. That line probably has more pace and is probably a little bit more, I feel like that line would get favored in minutes over Perfetti, Nyquist, and Toews as it lies right now. So ultimately, we'll see what happens. Here's the last question about Winnipeg, Johnny, and then we'll go to Bet365 after that. But Kyle Connor at the Four Nations last year, we saw what happened, right? He kind of got a little quiet. Then he found himself out of the lineup. Chef Richard says Perfetti will get 70 points this year. Listen, nobody knows the Jets like Chef Richard. And I know Jay Miller also here today, another Winnipeg guy, talking about Cole Koepke, who the former Minnesota Duluth Bulldog has been a good sort of role player in the National Hockey League. So that's a guy I agree with you was a good pickup. But how does this Olympic thing affect Kyle Connor? Is he wondering what his standing is on the team? Team USA is going to make some change. They're not going to take the exact same roster because they didn't win, right?
They were one goal away. I don't think the roster is that big of a deal.
Johnny, you mean to tell me they're taking the exact same group of players, you think, to the Olympics? If everybody's healthy, you think they're taking the same group? Okay.
No, but I don't think they're making such dramatic changes.
Well, hold on a second. Now you're putting words in my mouth. Nobody said they're making dramatic changes. I said they lost, so they most likely will not take the same group. I'm going to say to you what I say to the chat. Take the cotton out of your ears, Johnny. Listen to what I'm saying. Don't put words in my mouth, okay? That's what I do to you. Come on. Do you think Kyle Connor is sitting there concerned about his standing with the Olympic team? He was a healthy scratch in some pretty big games at the Four Nations, right? He was the odd man out in games where they couldn't score. So thank you for that. By the way, Lowry is recovering from surgery. I think that we did not hit on that. And that's a guy who, that is a hockey player there. But with Lowry. But what do you think? You think Kyle Connor's affected by the Olympic thing? Do you think he feels the pressure that we're talking about?
I think Kyle Connor is probably more concerned about his contract than the Olympics, and I think those two might go hand in hand. Obviously, he wants to get off to a good start because he wants to make the Olympic team, but I think he probably wants to perform better, more so for his contract and what the rest of his career will look like. But like I said, I think those two could go hand in hand. Am I sitting here thinking that Kyle Connor is going to be, fine if he doesn't make the Olympic team? Probably not. He's a competitive guy, and everybody wants to wear the Team USA colors and they want to go on that trip. But again, I don't know if that's his number one priority going into the season.
But don't we always hear the players talk about how special and different it is to put their country's shirt on? We hear them talk about it, and we witnessed it last year with players who kind of caved to the pressure. Like there was a bunch of, remember Tage Thompson, the start of the year versus when he didn't make it, how good he was the second half of the year?
Mm-hmm.
We can't sit here and say it doesn't affect these guys. And I think for Kyle Connor, who kind of, I don't know, like he found himself on the outside looking in throughout that tournament. I think it's more of a story of how it's going to affect him than we're talking about. Like I don't know. Like I think it's a bigger deal for a guy like him than you're talking about, because doesn't it coincide? If he plays really well, he makes the team and he gets his big fat contract and he goes where, listen, the guy's going to get a big fat contract no matter what his season is. Mm-hmm. He's got many years of service to know what he is. He could have the worst season of his career. Somebody will still give him an insanely good contract. His body of work is just too big. A bad year for him this year would be an outlier. So I don't know.
Agree. I think it's what?
No, go ahead. Say it.
I would think that Kyle Connor is going to get his 100-point season this year. He hasn't gotten it yet. He had 97 last year. Granted, again, like I said before, everything that could have went right for the Winnipeg Jets last year did. I don't know how much of a hole they'll have without Ehlers, but I think their power play is still going to be strong, and Kyle Connor is still one of the best finishers in the league. Like I have all the confidence in the world that he'll be fine. But I just looked it up on my phone just now on NHL.com, predicting the Team USA roster for Milan, and Kyle Connor's name is in that group of 14 forwards. Like I don't think he
should be. Cut. And
yeah, I agree. I agree.
He should have played.
I agree.
Kyle Connor should have played against the games that he didn't play. Like when you need goals, Kyle Connor needs to play. Even if he's not playing well, he could have a bad game for 58 minutes and score 2 goals. He's an elite goal scorer in the National Hockey League. An elite goal scorer in the National Hockey League. So, I mean, like that guy at his worst can score goals. At his worst.
He's a consistent 40 goal scorer. Is he getting 40 goals every year pretty much?
I mean, listen, he's like I said, he's an elite goal scorer.
Yeah, he's got, I guess just 2 40-plus goal seasons, but it feels like more. I mean, he's definitely
30. He's 30 per season. I mean, you're buying 30 goals a year for his whole career. Like that's So he is 29 years old though, right? Like, so we're not talking about a guy who's a spring. Oh, he'll be. When does he turn 29? I thought he was 29.
He will turn 29 on. Let me see. Does Puckpedia have birthdays?
No, I don't know. So, all right, let's go to bet. Let's go to Bet 365. I think that we've hit this one around enough, and I think I will be keeping an eye on how does Kyle Connor start this season, Johnny, just to see if I feel like the Olympic pressure is getting to him, and that's just something that I'll be looking for.
So for Bet365, whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. You must be 19 or older. We're going to look at the Central Division winners, and the Dallas Stars are plus 200 to win the division. The Colorado Avalanche are actually favored to come in first place this year. I think it's Dallas's division to lose. And I like that number, the Stars to win the division at plus 200. So that's what we're going to take because we both agree, right? My 1 through 8 is Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Utah, Minnesota, St. Louis, Nashville, and Chicago. And I know J-Rock is going to bookmark this and let me know about it in December if the Blues are in that top 3. So that's what I've got for the Central Division, Colby.
Yeah. And I had Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, St. Louis, Minnesota, Utah, Nashville, Chicago. I think what I would say, Johnny, though, about 1, 2, and 3, I don't think any of those 3 teams are teams that give a shit how they finish. I think those 3 teams, it's Stanley Cup or bust for those 3 teams. Like,
100%.
I don't think there's a participation trophy for any of those 3 teams in where they are in their sort of, you know, as the pendulum swings for these different teams when they go in their highs and lows. Like, those 3 teams are win or disappointment. So I don't really think it matters in who finishes 1, 2, 3 for the big 3, we'll call them, because it's win or go home, right? For Jared Bednar, Scott Arniel, again, like, I don't know. Again, Winnipeg's another organization they're pretty patient, right? They're not a team that's just offing coaches left and right, but it's win or go home for those teams, no doubt. So, all right, Johnny, listen, short week, but good week to be back. I know we're still working through some stuff, guys, as far as our software goes, and, some little things, some echoes, and we're working through some connection things, getting hardwired and this and that. So we are aware and we are working through those things, but ultimately I think, pretty smooth first couple of days back here. Johnny, obviously no show tomorrow. Next week will be a full week, Monday through Thursday. I will say this. Yesterday, we did great numbers. Our YouTube numbers were good. Our downloads were good. Social media was buzzing. So great to see all you guys back here live with us. I see just about all of our regulars back in the chat. I know there's probably a couple that are late to the party here, but we talked all summer about how boring our summer shows are without you guys. It really is. I mean, having you guys call us morons and me yelling right back at you, it just makes this show so much more interesting for me. Edu is like all over my case right now about my treatment of you today, Johnny. Is that like one of your cousins, or is that like a bot that you put in there? All right, so
it's me.
He's been all over. He's your little alias YouTube account. He's all over me, but it's great having you guys back. It's great being live. Russo was great today. We still have a bunch more division previews leading up to opening night last week. I saw OL Sneaky Pete here earlier. I know he got mad at me last year quite a bit for being a quote unquote Chicago Blackhawks hater. Again, I don't know what you're supposed to do when a team is just constantly finishing last and like you just don't see progress. We talked about their bright spots. We talked about their holes. But anyways, look, we'll just keep making our way through. We got a couple of teams in the East next week. We'll bring some guests on from the East, and we'll keep this train rolling. Johnny, go ahead.
Would you like to say what Vic just brought up to us?
I don't know what Vic just brought up to us. I'm not.
Check your text from Vic. I would prefer you to go into that over me if you'd like to.
Yeah, listen, I think we'll hold off on making that announcement. Here's what I'll say. We obviously will not have Frank with us every Tuesday this year, which we will miss. Obviously, Frank was a huge part of this show. He announced yesterday his new show that he'll be launching. He put that out all over social media. So we obviously wish him well and wish him nothing but the best. Certainly, I still talk to Frank almost every day, so nothing has changed there. But we will have an insider joining the show. It will be a very, very big name insider. I don't think it will be every week. It looks like it will be every other week. But we'll save that announcement till next week. But we'll give a lot of props to Vic and our producer, Vic, and our producer, who's the executive producer, Amal, because they're out there trying to work this deal out for us. But we can assure you guys that you will not be disappointed. We will still have an insider and a big-time insider joining the show with consistency. But I think we'll leave his name out for now. We'll let everybody's imagination run wild on who they think it is. So that's all we have for you today. Johnny, I got to get going, got to get down to practice. Jeremiah, you are wrong with your bet. And we will see everybody next week. Don't forget to like this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to get those automatic downloads on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can set automatic downloads for both of them, even though you only listen on one. Download them on both. Help your boys out. We hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will see everybody Monday at 9 a.m.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to Morning Cup of Hockey here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, we've got more great hockey content every day. You can catch DFO live at noon and stick around for the Sheet with Jeff Marek at 1 p.m. right here on Daily Faceoff. Until then, keep your coffee hot and your takes hotter.